This is the Storyworks Roundtable, where we have conversations about craft. Because becoming a successful author begins with writing a great story. Hello and welcome to this week's Storyworks Roundtable. Today, Kathryn, Robert, and I are thrilled to have Karissa Tunis and Shari Medini with us to discuss their new book, Parenting While Working from Home, a monthly guide to help parents balance their careers, connect with their kids, and establish their inner strength. Karissa and Shari are the co-owners of the popular parenting website, adorethemaparenting.com. With 6 kids between them and over a decade of work from home experience, they love sharing strategies that help fellow parents minimize the overwhelm while trying to juggle it all. So happy New Year. Thank you for joining us at the roundtable.
Thank you for having us.
We always do an episode at New Year's that has to do with goal setting and productivity. And so we're excited to talk about creativity and managing that aspect of our lives while also managing our busy home lives, family lives, and work from home lives. So tell us a little bit about your book and its inspiration.
So parenting while working from home, right? We were all thrown into that, or a lot of us were thrown into that. But many parents were thrown into that for the first time. And it was our opportunity, since Karissa and I had been working from home with little kids for a long time, it was our opportunity to share, here's some things that worked for us. You know, you have to get a little bit creative. You have to be realistic with your expectations. You have to go a little easy on yourself sometimes, and just be able to figure all of that out. So it was a great opportunity to share some more of those practical strategies that we've been applying to our own lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll ask all 3 of you who have small children at home, because Robert and I have older kids, kid one each, right? What challenges do you face managing work, children, and creativity? You know, especially as so many writers don't get to write full time, so their work and their creativity are not the same category for them. You know, so for someone else, work and home life might be 2 buckets. But then when you're also a creative, you get this 3rd bucket to try to deal with. So what are some of the challenges?
The constant distractions, right? And no longer being in control. Like, you don't always have control of your schedule. You know, kids don't nap when they're supposed to, or they have to stay home from school when you thought you'd have a whole day to get a whole bunch of stuff done. They wake up cranky and they just want to sit on your lap the whole day. You know, there's so many of these extra elements that go into it. And part of it is really accepting that this is your life right now, and it won't always be this way, but it doesn't mean that you should just throw up your hands and say, well, I'll write in 10 years, you know, because that's not good for you. That's not good for anybody. So how do we make that work and accept that even if I'm only getting to write in 15-minute increments, it's better than nothing. Karissa can definitely, she, has a lot that she's juggling right now with, 4 kids, various ages, the juggling that goes on in her household is always impressive.
I think for me, it's just been trying to realize what is the number one priority that needs done today. And each day that looks a little different. And that's something that Shari and I are very open about too with each other, with working together, that, you know what, I need a day to just focus on my family, or my laundry basket is just overflowing and I've got to give something else attention today other than work. And we totally get that. And we'll jump in for each other when needed. But some days it's work. You know, if I have a deadline I have to meet, my children I'm very honest with them and tell them this is going to be my focus. Yes, I have to take breaks and I have to help someone in the bathroom and make a snack and get lunch and all that kind of stuff. But in between all of that, I'm using moments to get my work done instead of maybe folding that laundry or sneaking in that, extra load in the dishwasher, whatever it is. But if I try to do too many things, I spread myself too thin, and then I feel like I'm not accomplishing what I can do in any one of those areas. So just giving one solid focus for the day, that really helps me to stay organized.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fantastic advice, actually, because that might be the least to my next question as well, because there's this pressure to really achieve and be perfect. And social media is a wonderful reflection of that, as we all see the lovely photos of our friends, families, etc., around the place. How do you deal with self-criticism when it comes to, what you should be doing? And there's this huge pressure in modern day to be a supermum. And, we've got, you guys are, great examples of mummy bloggers, for example, is everybody telling everyone how to do things and how to do things better. But as you said, the reality of life can be different there. It'd be curious to hear for people who want to work from home, who want to write and then start getting down on themselves, how you've handled that in the past.
I think you really need to look at your definition of what succeeding is. That, I think we set our sights a little bit too big sometimes, that we need to look on a day-to-day. My son's pediatrician, when he was little and I was worried about, I'm like, some days he seems like he eats nothing and other days he eats all day long. And he's like, well, as long as he's getting a well-balanced diet over the course of a week, we're good. And it was that light bulb moment of like, I can adopt that in my own life. As long as I spend some quality time with my kids, maybe touch base with a friend, eat something decent, and, get the work done that I need to get done over the course of a week, I'm winning. It's all good. And there are days where I do look like super mom, right? Where, maybe on a random Tuesday, I get a whole chapter written and I answer, my email box is empty and I go, make this nice dinner for my family. And there are other days where all I can muster is the bare minimum. And you can barely walk through the living room and, it's a mess and it's chaos, but really accepting that part of life is that ebb and flow. And I think we can get really stuck in, I need schedules, I need consistency, I need, this, that, and the other. And that doesn't leave any room for the hard days, which are just going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, I've been lucky enough to work from home and I have my own business for over 30 years. And so my daughter, who will be 19 in February, has only known us working from home. And it's been an absolute delight to experience every moment. So you don't want to trade either. You don't want to say, well, I've got to, split apart the busy time and then there's the me time. You kind of got to find a way to actually enjoy what can be sometimes a gray area. You're part working, you're part parenting, you're part delighting in your kids. And what I'm hearing behind the scenes there is that you're saying that self-care is important, that, setting the bar very high is never going to work because children don't work that way.
No, they don't. And I love your point. That's something that Karissa and I talk a lot about and write about a lot is the positive elements of getting to work from home and having your kids see you work from home and being able to share in that. And, my son walking in being like, what are you working on? And I'm like, here, look at this. I'm designing this graphic. What do you like better? What should that, and like giving them those updates, sharing the frustrations, they get to see hands-on what this looks like. And I'm always very careful in choosing my language when I'm talking with them, that if I am having a really busy day, it's not leave me alone, I'm working. It's once I get this done, then I would love to spend a little bit of time with you. What do you want to do when I have 10 minutes? And you can pack a lot into those little moments. I mean, there are days where we, might have to be on podcasts and meetings and writing and whatever. but you need those breaks too. So a lot of times I appreciate that my kids can be my break from my writing, and my writing is my break from my kids. But you can get quality moments. You don't have to spend, you don't have to go on a big adventure for the day to have a really meaningful connecting day with your kids. You could play around Uno, right? You could read a book together. You can go run around and play tag for 10 minutes and be out of breath. So it's really about appreciating and not losing those little moments throughout the day.
Mm-hmm. I love how integrative this process, the style of life is. When you first brought it up, Robert, I had this thought of, remember the take your kid to work day thing, where the kid went to the office, usually with dad, and like sat in the corner and was really bored and told to be quiet and stuff. This inclusiveness and spontaneity kind of built into the ebb and flow of the day sounds really beautiful for the whole family.
It can be. It's not always that easy.
Yeah, sure.
Karissa always recommends, which I love, is this idea of like putting the kids first. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit, Karissa.
Something I realize is if I just jump into my work, I'm so quickly getting interrupted with the kids. And I get frustrated and they get frustrated if I'm just constantly, give me 5 more minutes, and I'll get to you. And I'm not putting out my best work at that time either, especially when they're standing right beside me asking for help with something. So like Shari said, making those moments count. If I'm going to take a break from my work, go do something meaningful with them, make it fun. So I try really hard before I even dive into work. Make sure everyone's gone to the bathroom or their diapers have been changed or whatever, help everyone that I need to help. Get their favorite snacks out. Yeah. Fill up their sippy cups, turn on a favorite cartoon in the background, get out some toys that they haven't played with in a while. And now I can sit there on my laptop and watch as they dive in and play for a little while. Of course, they're not going to be entertained all day. We're going to have another interruption soon, but it prevents, especially because I have multiple kids, it prevents, 2 minutes later, the next one coming up and saying, I have to go to the bathroom, or my bowl is empty, or whatever it is. If I can try to meet those needs first, I can sit down and try to crank out some quality work.
And it helps with the guilt aspect too, that if you're able to start, first thing in the morning, like we sang some songs together while we filled up snacks, and, I didn't sit on the floor and play with them, but I set up a really fun play setup for them. And it's that opportunity to let them tell you the stories they want to tell you, and, swap a joke or two. And then if they're interrupting you, you'll say, oh, you're all set. I need to work for a little bit. I can, whatever time, I'll check back in with you. But it really helps that their needs are taken care of. You bought yourself some time. You can set that boundary.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how when you give them even just 10 minutes of your undivided attention, how far that goes with them versus, just a few quick responses here and there every couple minutes. Just giving them that block of time, they then feel like they've checked in with me. They can sit and play for a little while. And like Shari said, I love creating playscapes. I always look around our playroom for things they haven't played with in a while and try to think, how can we interact, different toys together, and give them almost like a project. Like here's all your construction blocks and trucks. Like, can you go across the family room and build a zoo over here? And then we'll bring in your animals or whatever it is. We try to layer in a bunch of play, but it keeps them busy for a while.
Mm-hmm. How different is it when you've got, say, a baby or a 1-year-old versus a preschooler versus maybe a 5 or 6-year-old? How soon can they kind of catch on to this? I need to concentrate right now. You've set it up for them, but still, how do the kids evolve with your needs as a work-at-home mom?
Well, I have kids that range from 12 down to 1. So we're at all different kinds of stages and phases in our house. But I will say as they get older, it gets easier. And I think that's something I have to constantly remind myself that they will not always be this small forever. They will not always need me this much forever. And I'll miss it, So I try to enjoy it. It's hard when you are trying to meet a deadline, but it's also easier with multiples because they can help kind of entertain each other.
Right.
And I tried to do something a little different when I had my third. I rearranged our kitchen pantry and put snacks that I thought were safe for the kids to eat on the bottom shelf. I put little snack bowls there. I put cups by the sink and a step stool, and my 4-year-old daughter then could get up and fill a little cup of water for her and her brother. I could see them. We have an open layout floor plan, so I could still see them while I was working, but she loved feeling needed and she liked that responsibility, and she'd get him a little cup of water and fill his bowl with a few animal crackers, and I didn't have to walk away from the baby at the time. And I did that not even because of work. I was having our third baby, and I thought if I'm in the middle of feeding him or something, I want her to be able to help out and meet their needs. But that even helped them when I was working, that she could even jump in and help with some of those requests.
I think the other element, depending on the ages and where your family's at with things, is having to kind of shift my expectation of when my work shift is going to be. So when my kids were little, I had to kind of accept, like, maybe I could answer an email here or there, right? But I wasn't going to be doing anything that required me to really focus on one thing until my husband got home in the evening, or maybe even until they were actually put down to bed at night. So trying to rethink that. And instead of spending my entire day feeling guilty that I wasn't getting anything done, look what I have to get done, I was like, you know what? This is my opportunity. This is my chance to sit on the couch, to maybe watch a show that I want to watch, that, you know, I'm the queen of like popping in an earbud and holding my phone and watching like my show on Netflix while my kids are watching a cartoon. So it was my chance. I'm like, okay, first shift is just me having some downtime. How can I relax? How can I recharge? How can I be a mom right now? And then I have to shift and do that second shift later on, drink that coffee before bedtime and know that I need to work till midnight. And that obviously shifted once my kids headed off to school, I had to kind of rearrange everything, right? I had to rearrange mentally and be like, now this is my window that I want to try to be productive so that I can be there for them when they get home.
Could you use a writing coach to mentor your progress and a group of like-minded, goal-oriented peers for support and accountability? In 2022, I'll be coaching not one, but 2 small groups of select writers. The first group coaching session is for novelists who want a year-long guided journey from page 1 to the end. The goal? To have a complete draft of a novel at the end of the coaching period while shaping your voice and honing your story craft every step of the way with peer work and accountability. The second group is for nonfiction authors offered in 3-month sessions, whether you're writing blog posts, business email chains, or a self-help or how-to book that will function as your professional calling card. This group will coach you through the nitty-gritty of structure, flow of ideas, honing your voice for your specific audience, and much more, while developing critical peer connections and accountability along the way. You can find information about my coaching services at wordessential.com/editing/coach. One of the things I love about your book that I think is different from other books is you don't just talk about being a parent and doing things with the kids. You also have sections on self-care and prompts for the parents to reflect on their needs and how they can help themselves. Can you talk more about that, about the concept of self-care and why you included it in the book? And
I think, we kind of get stuck in this thing where we think that we need a weekend getaway to recharge and then magically we're going to be fine, for the next however long. But the reality is, like, if we're burning ourselves out day in and day out, it's hard to come back from that. So Karissa, I don't know if you want to touch on some of that, but I love her strategy of just incorporating those little things throughout every single day that kind of help restore you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Shari's right. a lot of people think you need to go to the spa or you need to spend all this money to do self-care. And while that is really nice, that's just not practical for a lot of us. So just finding little moments that you can be intentional about. Shari's talked before about like, you read those comments about someone like sneaking a chocolate bar in the bathroom or something, but if you're going to do it, own it, like make the moment count. And so I just try to find little moments throughout the day. What's a few things I can do in the morning, whether it's making my favorite breakfast or my favorite cup of coffee with some added flavors to it. Doing something for yourself in the afternoon. Shari talks about what she did with her AirPods, popping them in when the boys were watching their favorite movie for the 15th time or whatever. She was secretly listening to her own thing, but sitting there cuddling them on the couch. When she said that to me, that was like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, why didn't I ever think of that? But just looking for some of those little moments that you can kind of take back for yourself throughout the day.
And I love even rethinking. You're like, okay, I need a shower today. Or like, well, if it's going to take 20 minutes, like, could I just do a nice bath? Like I could light a candle and put some salts in and feel like I spoiled myself a little bit. Or, instead of sitting at school pickup and like scrolling through my phone, can I make sure I keep a book in my car and read a couple pages and feel like I did something meaningful for me? But I think it's too easy to lose those couple minutes throughout each and every day. We also even recommend to keep like a 5-minute or a 10-minute to-do list of like a list of things that you can do in 10 minutes, whether that's productivity, whether that's self-care. But instead of being like, I need to go get the kids in 10 minutes. What should I do? And just wasting that, you can refer back to your list and you can say, oh, I could actually sit down and sip hot coffee and read a book. Like that feels more restorative. You could lay down and take some deep breaths. Like all of these things, they sound so simple. They sound so easy, but they do help. And take advantage of that, especially while working from home. The other piece of that self-care, if you're doing some of that, you don't need to share that with everybody either. Like you can go on a walk, and if your boss calls, you don't have to pick up. You can call him back in 5 minutes and say, oh, sorry, I missed you. What did you need? You don't have to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I was out for a walk and I ignored you. And, just you do you. Like you don't have to share every piece of that. You don't have to feel guilty about taking a few moments for yourself, especially because working from home is a lot of times a 24/7 on-call situation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, especially with kids at home. Yeah. God, that reminds me when I was matriculating as an undergraduate, the president of the college gave a speech to all of the entering freshmen, and he's up there at the podium, and then he just stops talking. And it's silent. And everybody's like, what? And finally he says, that was 5 minutes. Don't think you can't get something done just because you only have 5 minutes. Like,
wow.
Oh.
I love that. Because everyone was like, it probably felt like 20.
Right.
We're like, what's happening?
Yes.
We're supposed to do something?
Yes. And actually, I just interviewed one of our reading series authors, and he's a truck driver, and he put Word on his phone, and he keeps a wireless keyboard in his truck. So when he's sitting in an idling truck waiting for something, he types.
That's
he
amazing.
Can get a few hundred words into a story just sitting there in the cab of his truck. I was like, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like Chris Fox writing his sci-fi stuff on the iPhone while waiting at the bus stops. It's quite. So
yes.
You can. I think one of the things that's coming through is the need to really keep your well of creativity filled as well, and that's that can be tough at home. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, but it's still. You at home, you have all these other stimuli, and not just kids. You've got a house that needs tidying, or you've got deliveries, or you've got chores, or and there's all these other things that could take priority. So I like your idea of saying, make sure there's something for you that's going to come in there. And I think for creatives, especially writers who are at home trying to, or feeling guilty that I just spent 2 hours, vacuuming the house when I should have been writing, but maybe that's a form of self-care. And so finding ways to balance that. Your book is called Parenting, and for parents, not just mum. So as a father, I'm curious as to how your partners have played into the support there, and any frustrations that you've heard from other genders or other people who have different lifestyles that our listeners would be curious to hear about.
I think it's been so great now that it is becoming a little bit more mainstream for, dads to be working from home, dads to be around more, dads to be more involved. And it was really, I heard from a lot of moms whose husbands were working from home for the first time during the pandemic, and just their realization of like what a day actually looks like. They were a little bit shocked.
Yeah.
But also, for the most, I have a friend that, her husband had a horrible commute and he just couldn't be around a whole lot. And him then realizing, he ended up making a career change because he was like, I didn't realize how much I was missing. And, once you were able to be there and connect and see those, it is about the little moments, right? Those are the things that stick with us. So I think it's really powerful, and I think it's amazing and beautiful. And I think it's so helpful for the kids too, because, we write, I think it's in just Father's Day in June, in the June chapter about, the different parenting styles that Chris and I have both seen, that were like our husband's interactions with our kids is very different than ours. We wear different hats. And it's really cool. It's really cool to see that like they don't have to parent the way we parent in order to connect with them and have a really great relationship.
I think it's a huge adjustment for a lot of working men as well, because the male mind is so task focused, and it's really easy. And I found it really easy. Okay, don't interrupt me now. I've got something that's really important. And I think mums are much more used to rolling with the punches because they've had no choice.
Yes.
Whereas all of a sudden, the men who are working from home going, you can't do that. The office door's closed. You can't come in. Well, but daddy, so I think it's a big adjustment to have to make.
Yeah, it is. I don't want to work that way either. Like I would rather be able to close the door and focus. So I think there's that mutual understanding a little bit, and having to adapt. We've all had to adapt a lot. Our kids have had to, we've had to, our partners have had to. But that was the hope with, having it be parents and not just moms, that hopefully this is helpful, whether it's, grandma or grandpa or, a caregiver. Like, hopefully these are things that are going to be helpful regardless of where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
Yeah. Another special thing about your book is that it is set up with a chapter for every month. And you mentioned in the introduction, and I know some of your reviewers mention as well, that parenting in the summer is very different than parenting in the winter. And then being a Minnesotan, I'm very affected by the seasons. Winter here is not winter in Florida. So can you talk a little bit about how the calendar affects parenting? And did you think about seasons at all? I mean, if you talk about making snowballs, that might not fly in half the country in a winter chapter. So tell us about that.
You want to dive into that?
Yeah, with each month, there's just different things that you think about as a parent. In the summertime, you think about more of the outdoor safety and outdoor activities and things like that. In the wintertime, you're inside a lot more. I live in South Carolina, so I'm not dealing with snow like I did when I was in Pennsylvania, but we still have really cold days. And so what do you do when you're trying to keep the kids occupied inside for long periods of time? It gets dark earlier. But even just beyond the season, it's what are the stressors that are at that time of year? In December, we talk about the holidays. The holidays are so much fun, but we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So how can you simplify that a little bit for the family, and how can you enjoy that more for everyone? So I think I might have mentioned before about our website. We tend to create content that way. We try to create content that's very appropriate for that time of year. What are we currently dealing with as parents? What is frustrating to us, or what are we really enjoying, and how can we share that with our audience? And so we kind of took that concept and put it towards the book as well.
Mm-hmm. And even the working from home element, my kids, when they're out of school, they're home with me for the whole summer. So, and Chris and I and our work have been really intentional about, okay, summer's coming, we need to work ahead, or, okay, it's almost November, we need to start working ahead, because we just know that we get into those rhythms where we can try to be really productive for a little while so that we can enjoy a little bit more downtime in the months that are more intense on the parenting front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those long summer weeks where you're trying to find things to do, and then you run out of things to do, and you've still got work piling up, and that's definitely very challenging. How have you been able to do that, to make sure that you spend the quality time and yet still get the creative things done when they are home for long periods of time out of school when they're a bit older?
I know I have found that the beginning of any break is always really, really difficult. I always joke that I'm like, oh, my kids need to remember how to be around each other. It is because it is just like, they forget that they like each other. They forget how to get along. They are just butting heads constantly. And so I have learned that over the years. And now I kind of give ourselves maybe a 2-week buffer before I lose it, right? Where I'm just like, this is normal. I'm doing fine. It's normal. It'll be okay. It'll sort itself out. And what do you know, a couple weeks later, they're best of friends. And I think it's so important to give them that opportunity. Because if I was like, this isn't working, you're fighting constantly, you're both going to separate summer camps, and, that's just how we're doing it, they wouldn't have that opportunity to spend that time together and grow as brothers and have those memories and hurts my wallet, all of those extra things that sometimes we do need to give. There's that balance of when do I need to fix something and when do I need to give it a little bit of time and space to see if there's something else at play here.
Yeah. So you have to adjust your own work style to be able to then fit in. But I like the way that you say, okay, I've grown to expect that now. My routines have been this way, but then as soon as that summer break hits, I'm going to have to allow the first week or two to be a little bit different.
Yeah. So could I work ahead so that I can spend more time parenting and less time on the work? And it kind of goes back to, like we were saying with the age of the kids, that over the summer, I'm just going to have to accept that more is going to either have to wake up before they wake up, or I'm going to have to stay up past when they stay up, that we kind of have to get a little bit more creative with those moments, because I also want to be at the pool during the afternoon, right? I want to go do that. We don't have a lot of summers together. So let's make the most of that. Let's have fun. And I'll squeeze the work in when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're knowing then it's September comes, you go back to school and we can hit it hard again.
Yeah.
Right.
So dealing with that ebb and flow, I like that. It plays back to the structure of your book as well. That's really it's clever advice, I think, to stops you from having to be a superhuman being every month of the year, and then makes it possible to dedicate the time that you never get back. You're spending that precious time with kids, watching them grow. I mean, that's the whole point of parenting in the first place, isn't it? You bring a life into the world that you take joy in watching them absorb the world, and it's so easily missed.
Right.
Yeah. And those are the things that inspire you moving forward. It's hard to be productive day in and day out. So, while it might feel like, oh, I shouldn't waste time at the pool, that's not a waste of time. That's fantastic. You're going to come back, recharge. Maybe you chatted with a friend and got a new idea. Maybe you read a book poolside and now you're dying to go write some more. Like there's a lot that can come out of that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on parents where both parents are working from home and parenting, or one works from home and one doesn't, and how to really be a team as you develop your strategies for being productive and being there for the kids and taking care of yourself?
Do you have any tips, Karissa?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think about my own marriage. My husband worked in an office for when we first got married and we first started our family. And then when we made the move to South Carolina, he was able to come and work from home. So he's been working from home for about 3 years now. And either way, it's an adjustment and you have to learn how to best work together. It definitely took us a couple months to figure out our new routine here at home and who's going to run with what. His job is a little bit more hourly based. Like he has to be by his computer for certain hours of the day. He cannot really pull himself away. Whereas I'm more project based. And so during that time when he really has to be focused, I'm running with the kids stuff. It's nice to know if there was an emergency, he is in the other room, but I really try to run with everything. And then when he's done, I can then focus on what I need to finish wrapping up for the day if I didn't get my work done. But when he worked in an office, I don't know, it was different. I will just say, I think what's really helped us is we keep the same priorities for our family. We have the same goals. And so how can we both work towards that together? And that looks different in every different phase of life. And, when your kids are toddlers versus I now have a daughter that's going to be a teenager this month. I can't believe it. It's so different. It's constantly evolving and changing, but keeping those same priorities has just really helped us keep a clear focus.
Mm-hmm. Something that Karissa talks about a lot that I appreciate is she's like, you get to pick 2 things to focus on for any given, week or month or whatever. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all. You always explain it well, but I have, for me, myself, I have 3 areas of focus and it kind of rotates between which to get my top priority. But basically it's family, work, and friends. And so family is always one of my number one spots. So the other 2 that rotate are work and friends. So when I am in the middle of a work deadline, I'm not as social. I will text a friend. I'll call a friend if I, have a moment where I'm folding laundry or something, but I'm not scheduling, a dinner out with some girls or whatever it is. But when I'm done with that work project, they're the ones that I call and want to go out and celebrate with and, spend that quality time with them so that when I do have phases where I can't be as involved in their lives, they know I still care, we can pick right back up where we left off. But back to just spreading myself too thin. I try to pick one solid focus for the day, and that's what I give most of my energy to. So whether it's my family, whether it's getting stuff done around the house, whether it's my work, I just have to stay laser focused. There's so many distractions that can pop up throughout the day. And like Shari was saying earlier too, a lot of my time to work is broken down into increments, in small increments. And if I don't have that focus for the day, it's so easily to even just sit there and scroll on my phone. And before I know it, 10, 15 minutes went by and I didn't really get anything accomplished. So just being really clear with where my priorities are at and just focusing on that really helps.
Right. Great tip to wrap up on, but I want to know if there's something from your January chapter that you would love to share with our listeners, whether it's for the kids or the self-care, just any sort of favorite tip for January.
I feel like I need to like flip through real quick. I'm like,
Oh, no.
what did we write about? Go ahead.
I think the goal setting.
Yeah.
Something that I think was kind of like an aha moment for both Shari and I was just setting goals for ourselves. But then what are smaller goals that you can set to help achieve that bigger one? It keeps you focused. It keeps you moving in the right direction. It keeps you from getting discouraged and giving up. But it's such a valuable lesson that applies to both adults, but something that we should also be teaching our kids. I don't know if you want to expand on that more, Shari, but Shari's background of being an athlete, it was just interesting because we both came at the goal subject from a little bit different viewpoints. And I like what we came up with together.
I hated goal setting growing up as a child because I was a competitive gymnast. I did gymnastics up through college and, we would talk about goal setting, right? But it was never explained in a way that felt helpful. It only felt like, well, if I set a goal, I'm only setting something to fail at. So it's like, if I meet the goal, great. But if I don't meet the goal, that feels worse than not setting the goal in the first place. And that was because it wasn't being explained properly. We were only talking about long-term big goals instead of saying, okay, here's where you want to end up. Here's how you can get there. And as an adult, relearning that process, and even through working with Karissa, who really has incorporated that into her own life, that what is the end goal? Where do we want to be? And how do we just slowly work backwards from there? That, okay, we want to write a parenting book. Well, an element of a parenting book is you need a platform in this day and age. So, how can we build that? What do we want to talk about? How do we want to connect with people? What do we want to share? What do we feel passionate about? And what does that look like? Do we have to do it all? No. We don't have to, we can, if we're looking at like really small pieces of how we set things up, like our email newsletter works really well for us. So we're able to focus on that piece of things instead of getting so distracted. But really setting up, I agree. And then for our kids too, trying to show them your hard work pays off. Like, look, you studied for your spelling test every single night this week. And look, you did well. That wasn't luck. You had control over that. And I think making sure that when we have a success, we're owning that success. And same thing for our kids. Like, you worked for that. That wasn't just the universe handing you that. You took the steps to get there. And when you do a good job of the goal planning, it's a lot easier to kind of take credit for your wins.
I love that. I love that you're celebrating the steps, like the child studying for the spelling bee, instead of just saying, oh, look, you got 10 out of 10. Good job. Right. Say, look, yeah, that's brilliant. Well, tell our listeners where they can find your beautiful book and you.
Thank you. So easiest place to find us is our website, adorethemaparenting.com. You can find our email newsletter there and all of our social platforms, and our book is there as well. Our book's available from all major retailers. You just search Parenting While Working From Home. It should pop up. You can check your library. A lot of independent bookstores are carrying it. So check in and support whoever you would like.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us here, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the StoryWorks Roundtable. Find all our shows, show notes, and videos at storyworkspodcast.com.